our favorite topics to talk about, and we find there's a lot of demand for it, is reporting. First and foremost, general reporting. What are the high-level requirements of reporting in Marketo? And that's very much what lovely Megan is going to be talking about today. Then I'll be jumping in and taking a look at the people performance report. I do know that reporting is a key requirement for anyone who's doing any type of marketing, especially marketing automation. So let's jump straight in.
Okay, thank you for the intro, Nora. Nora, can you see my screen?
I can. Yeah.
So when we are talking about reporting in Marketo, guys, it's huge. You know, there are so many different things that we could look at and talk about and go through. But for today's session, we have selected a few of the most useful reports. So we're going to take a look at those, and we're also going to take a look at some of the features of these reports that maybe people aren't utilizing to the fullest extent, or they actually don't know that these features are available for their reports to be getting more, you know, granular results or particular results that they're looking to achieve. So when we think about reporting, the first question that we need to ask ourselves, and the main question we need to ask ourselves, is what are we looking to get from the reports that we want to build? So what are we looking for? What are the results? So if you are looking for the who, so you know who has done something in one of your campaigns, who has interacted with one of your assets, this is sort of trailing off down into the territory of smart campaigns and smart lists. So we're not going to cover smart lists today because they in itself are massive. We're going to look specifically at ways we can use actual reports. So if you are looking for more for the how many rather than the who, this is where we turn to our Marketo reports. Now, there are a couple of exceptions to this rule, and I will cover one myself a little bit later, and Nora will also cover one that is a little bit of an exception to the how many rule for reporting specifically. So the first report we're going to take a bit of a look at is the email performance report. Now, I'm sure, you know, most of you who have used Marketo, probably email performance report is the most commonly used one. There are two main areas of the email program itself where we can review the results of our email send. So the first one here is the dashboard. So we use the dashboard for a quick visual representation and overview of our results. The second option we have to review our results is by actually building our reports. So in particular, our email performance report. And we would build our reports because these do have added features where you can apply filters and segmentations to get a little bit more granular with results. So let's take a look in Marketo now at some of these reports. Okay, so I'm now in Marketo and we're looking at the demo email program that we've got set up. Now, when we select our email program and we view the dashboard, here we can see the overview of our results in general. So two main points to remember about the dashboard is, number one, you can't rely on dashboard results until probably at least 24 hours after a send. That's probably the number that we give when we say, look, it's safe to trust the results that we see on this dashboard. The second thing is that you cannot customize this. So what you see on the dashboard here is what you get. So when you are looking to dive a little bit more, deeper into your report results, this is where we actually want to create a report. So just going into the email performance report here. So on the screen here, we see the general layout of our report. Now, even though we are looking specifically at the email performance report, this is the general layout you see of reports across Marketo as a whole. So we are going to take a look at some of the features that are available to us in most of our reports, and then look at how that differs across different reports. So the first place I'm going to go when I've built my email performance report is the Setup tab. Now this This is where we apply all of our settings to, for how we want our report to display. So the first thing I'm going to point out, and it's something to remember, is your sent date. So by default, Marketo, whenever you create a new report in Marketo, Marketo automatically constrains the results to only show the past 7 days of activity. So this is a big gotcha, and I know that both Nora and I have hit it a few times.
It does, it catches me every time.
Yeah, when you come into, create a report, and specifically if you're looking for historical results or results in a greater time span than the last 7 days, sometimes when you come in and your report's empty, you may wonder why. So just always remember to update your sent date. So you do that just by double clicking. Obviously you can get a little bit more granular and specific about when you want to look, but for today, we're just going to select all time. Now we have a few other filters here on the right-hand side. So by default, when you do create a report within a program, it looks specifically at the assets within that report. So in this instance, this report is only looking at the emails that sit within inside, this program. But on the right-hand side here, we do have filters that we can drag in. So we can, at the moment, it's looking at emails within our marketing activities, and we can select specific emails that we want to look at here across other programs. You can also look at archived emails or emails that are sitting within your design studio. Another option here is our group by segmentation filter. So this is really a really cool filter that you can drag in, and it looks at all of the segmentations that are set up in your instance. So let's use location for today's example. So in our Marketo system, we have segmentation set up for location, New South Wales, Victoria, and New Zealand. And this may seem a little bit funny to some of you guys watching why we have those locations, but it's just because they're the primary groups and primary locations that we email to as BPX. So now we'll see if we go back into our report, it will split our results by the segment that we've chosen. Okay. So it will, and this way we can compare, we can look deeper into our results to see where things are coming from and who these people are, a little bit more information about some of the things that we want to look at. So just before we move off this, if you do want to get more granular with your results, you do have the smart list option in most of your reports. So that way, for example, we could look specifically at company, how many people from the company received our report? And we can, it shows a little bit more granular results on our report tab there. So the last thing I want to cover, which is, this is available across all of the reports that we're going to look at today, but it's report subscriptions. Now, this is a really handy tool for you to use if you have, say you have your marketing team and they all have access to Marketo, but say you have people outside of your marketing team who are not using Marketo. So for example, your manager, maybe CEOs, CMOs, and you want to send, they want to receive the reports and the results of your email performance or any of the initiatives that you're doing in Marketo. So what you can do is you can set up this report. You can set up subscriptions to this report. Pop in your email recipients, choose the frequency of when they should receive their report to their inbox, and hit create. Now, the thing with this to remember is you can set the frequency, so when people should receive this report, but one thing you can't set is the time it's sent, which can be a little bit inconvenient if you want to send the results of an email send just prior to a meeting on a Monday morning, for example. So one feature that you can come in here and utilize is the send button here. So if you need the people on this list to receive the report results immediately, come in here and you can hit send straight away. So now that we've looked at a program that's a report that's sitting within one of our programs, we're going to jump into the analytics section. So this is where global versus local reports come into play. So if you've been using Marketo for a little while, and you've probably heard the terms global and local when referring to your assets. So when we refer to a global report, this is created in the analytics section, and it can be used to compare results across multiple programs. A local report is created within your program in marketing activities, and is primarily used to look at the activity of a specific program. So just like we did there with the email performance report. So now we're going to jump into the analytics section and take a look at some global reports. Okay, so much like we just saw on the slides there, these are the different report types that we have available in our Marketo instance. So the first one we're going to take a bit of a look at is the email link performance. So this one obviously goes hand in hand with your email performance report that we've just created, but now we're creating a global version of the email link performance to compare all different, compare the link activity across all different emails. So when we click on this, and we're looking at email link performance report, we can see that there's not much that's different, if anything is different compared to the email performance report. So again, we have this general layout, but when we go into the report section here, this is where it does start to look a little different. So here we have all of the links that are within our, the emails that we've selected in our setup tab. So the main thing to point out here, and the reason why we've included this is because as consultants, we've had this question a million times from some of the clients that we work with, and it's what's the difference between leads and clicks? Now, leads here refers to the number of unique clicks this specific link has had. So this refers to how many people have clicked the link, whereas your links column here, your clicks column here is referring directly to the amount of clicks. So, you know, you could have, even though we have 12 leads here, so 12 unique clicks, we've got a total of 15. So this means that people in this leads column have clicked the link more than one time. Okay, moving on to the engagement stream performance. So again, we have all the same features of the last two reports we've just looked at, but when we jump into our reports tab, we'll see a few little differences. So with particularly for today's session, I have selected a specific engagement program that we have sitting in our Marketo instance. And this one is particularly handy when you are running engagement programs across your instance. So when we come to this report, we have all of the general metrics, you know, your sent, your delivered, your open rate, your unsubscribed. But one additional column that we have, and it's probably one of the most useful features of this report, is our engagement score. Now, this engagement score is a proprietary algorithm Marketo has created, which takes into account engaged behavior. So this is your clicks, your opens, as well as your disengaged behavior, so your unsubscribes. It takes these results and it benchmarks these across other drip and email style nurtures in your Marketo instance. So this gives an average score, starts with an average score of 50, and it gives us a really good insight into, you know, what emails in our engagement programs are receiving the highest engagement. What are people most clicking on, and, you know, which emails are people interacting with most? And this allows us to sort of come back and optimize the different emails and the different content types we're using in our engagement programs as a whole. So this one here is a really, really, really useful report. Okay. Next up, we've got the landing page performance report. Now, you'll see that we do have one specific tab the Smart List tab missing across the top here, but really this is the only difference, only main difference here of this report. So when we tab into this report, we'll see a few of the features that this one offers. So just like the email performance report, if you are using Marketo landing pages, this one is just important because it does show us conversions. So please note that this only does look at Marketo specific pages. It doesn't look at the corporate pages on your website. So the main feature of this report here is our conversions tab. So this conversions tab looks at how many times the form has been filled out on this page. So on your individual pages. So how many times has someone interacted with the form on this page? The other useful column here is new names. Now we can see here that this landing page here we've had 5 new names come into our Marketo system that weren't previously known to us. We've had 5 new people come into this form and come into this page and fill out the form on this page. Therefore, it sort of helps us measure attribution around this and see, what pages are generating new names. Now, the last report we're going to take a brief look at is the web page activity report. So remember how I said earlier that if you want the who, you should be using Smart List, but we did have a few little exemptions to that rule, and web page activity is one of them. So looking at our web page activity report, this report allows us to get a bit of an overview and a bit more of an insight into the known and anonymous leads who are visiting our website and all of the pages on our website that are using Munchkin tracking. So I'm going to start in the setup tab here. And you will see that we don't have as many filters here, but we do have something called an activity source. Now, this allows us to determine whether we want to view known leads or anonymous leads in our actual report. So let's start by leaving it as known leads and take a look at what we can see. So you'll notice here that this web page activity report does include Smart List. So when I tab across to Smart List, I have include company name contains blueprint. Now, this is just obviously for this session and privacy reasons. We're going to see how many people from Blueprint have been, looking at our activity, looking at our web pages over the past couple of days. Now, our date of activity is still sitting at 7 days, so I'm going to update this to all time. And we're going to go back to our report. Okay, so here are our results here. So from this, we can see, going back all time, who with the company name Blueprint X has been viewing our landing pages. And there's a few more little details included, but you can get quite granular with this. So let's go back to our setup tab and have a look at what the report looks like when we select anonymous leads. So in the drop down, you can choose to include ISPs and not include ISPs. Whether or not we include or exclude ISPs, it doesn't matter too much because this information is not too accurate in Australia. So for the purpose of today, we're just going to include ISPs. And hit apply. I'm going to go to my Smart List and I'm going to delete my company name constraint. And then let's take a look at what our report looks like. Okay, so here we have some anonymous leads that have been viewing our website. And there are a lot of items because I've selected all time. So this is a really useful report for you guys to set up if you just want to take a look at what companies have been looking at your website, how many pages they've viewed, where they've come from, and it allows you to sort of pick up new names. And if there are specific companies that have been, fishing around your website a lot and visiting lots of pages, and, there's lots of activity, you can potentially change your marketing and gear your marketing towards them a little bit more. Or maybe this is a tool that sales can use to reach out to someone that is all over the website.
Megan, one of the questions that we have received in the last day or so is you've kind of touched on, so I thought I might elaborate for the attendees in terms of how we have used this sort of thing in the past. And when you and I were talking about this prior to the session, I know we spoke about clients where they had lead scoring set up, but lead scoring targets the known leads. So essentially, one of the key things we use this particular report for is to find potential net new logos, as well as build on what we already have in terms of lead scoring. The example that I'd like to give is with one organization where there was a lead who was kind of warm. They weren't really a hot lead. They hadn't been passed over to sales. Their lead score wasn't quite high enough for that, but they'd been marked as a marketing lead within within Marketo. So what we did with that is take a look at it, and we also reviewed this report, the anonymous web visits. In doing so, we discovered that about 6 or so other people within the same organization who were anonymous were also visiting our website, and we could see that they were interacting with the website in what we would call interesting ways. Now, they were anonymous. We didn't know who they are, but we did know one person from that organization in our database. We were able to track them down and, with our input, bump them from a warm lead to a hot lead to be tracked. Now, that obviously did turn into a sale because we knew there were multiple people in the organization, and we've also used it for net new logos, knowing the organizations that we could be doing more research into to target. So if anyone does have any more questions on that, please feel free to pop that in the Q&A. More than happy to jump right in. Back over to you, Megan.
Yeah, so no, that's a perfect example. Thank you, Nora. So exactly, you can get a lot more granular with, specifically if you're looking for particular companies that had interacted with your webpage, you can, filter this down to look for those specific companies. So that is an overview of our webpage activity report. So they are a few examples of the reports that you should be using, and the features of these reports that you can be using to, review and optimize your activity in Marketo. So, review your reports regularly, use all of the features that we've gone through today, and use this to your advantage. If something is not changing, if your engagement score is not going up, for example, then that means you need to review something. And these reports essentially are your toolkit to optimizing all of your marketing initiatives in your campaigns. So I'm now going to hand back over to Nora, who's going to go through a much more advanced report called the People Performance Report. So over to you, Nora.
Thank you, Megan. Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Alrighty. So thank you for setting the scene there. That's absolutely so important to understand how those reports are set up and when we might use some of those reports that we should be using day in and day out. What I wanted to go through today is the People Performance Report, which in my opinion is one of the most underutilized and most powerful reports that comes out of the box with Marketo. Over the last 7 years of training, when I have my I'll call them my class, my students, I'm consulting, I'm assisting my clients, I find that about 90% of my advanced reporting questions where a client has said, hey, Nora, is it possible to create a report that ... I can answer that at least in part by looking at a people performance report. It is one of the most customizable reports in the Marketo instance that comes out of the box. So I do want to ask you a question, and I'd love for you to share in the chat your answers so I can review them, and we'll go through those at the end of this session once I've completed the presentation. Do you use the people performance report today? And if so, how? Please pop in your answers. I'm going to keep presenting, but I will review those as soon as we're done, because I'd like to present this back during the follow-up to this session. I'm going to start with a practical example on this one, and I've got Graham's face up on the screen. The example I have is a request from Graham. So our program, which is this one, the unlocked program, is now run on a monthly basis. It contains statistics. We have our email reports. We can see opens, clicks. We've got our email link performance. And so we can see all of the reports that Megan has just described at the program level. We can run those reports. We can analyze the data. Graham has asked me for a specific report though. He'd like to see a report of everyone who has shown an interest in one of our training courses, so one of our public-facing training courses, and whether they are also clicking and engaging with our unlocked comms month to month. So these are two separate activities that we run, but we would like to start to understand a little more about that relationship because we've identified there's a link between the two. Below is the conversation that took place between Graham and I to make sure you guys are enabled to and understand the questions that you should be asking when you receive these sorts of requests. First and foremost, Graham, do you want to know who or how many in statistics for analysis? Now, typically when you're talking to Graham or the person making this request, they might not have all of the answers in the same terms that you do within Marketo. In this particular case, Graham said, I think I need to know those statistics, but I think a bit more detail might be required. With a bit of prompting, he said, let's go by segments. So that's fine. So do you want to know any link or specific links? This is more so that I can build my logic. He said, oh, I think any link is fine, but I don't care about the social and unsubscribed. I report on that separately. So that's perfect. I can work with that. What I then did is jump straight into Marketo, and I'm going to do that with you now. To demonstrate how this is built using the people performance report. Now, you may notice our interface is slightly older. So in most instances, your people performance report will be called a people performance report. In this instance, it's actually called the lead performance report. As Megan highlighted, one of my biggest gotchas is remembering to change the date, and that's achieved through the setup tab. So I've just made sure that I've gone back in time and I've got the right date set there. I'm going to show you what this report looks like right now, but the settings I want to show you are, one moment while I remove some settings. I don't need those in there. Now, as far as the reporting I have, I've asked for it to be grouped by months when my leads have been created. I've hidden my opportunity columns, and I've asked it to export 5,000 rows at a time. Let's take a look at what that report looks like right now. Okay, it's just got a series, it's got the numbers, I can see the dates, and right now it goes right back to, I think, 2016. Perfect. All it's showing me at the moment is the month that someone was created and the number of leads that were created in that month. That's certainly not what Graham asked me to create. but I want you to be aware of what this looks like out of the box. Now let's take a look at the setup again. I briefly mentioned the opportunity columns. Obviously, for the privacy of our database, I won't be showing the opportunity columns in Marketo. I will jump back into the slide deck though, so I can describe what you would see if you selected shown for the opportunities. If I had opportunity column set, I would be able to see the number of opportunities, the days that that opportunity was open as well as not open, whether they have the opportunity, the total amount of the opportunity, the days it took for that opportunity to go from open to won or close, or the number of days that it sat with sales versus the number of days it took for the lead to go from a lead to having an opportunity. All of this data can then be chopped and changed in the people performance report based on that group by criteria that I showed you earlier. At the moment, remember, it's being grouped by the date that that lead was created. Now, I'm going to jump back into Marketo. The next thing I'm going to do in my setup is add some custom columns. So remember, this is what my report looks like at the moment. It's just the date and the total number of leads. I'm going to add what is called a custom column or a series of custom columns. And I will show you how these were created behind the scenes as soon as I have demonstrated what it looks like. Now, as many of you may know, our Unlocked series has been running has had 6 runs. So these were the previous Unlocked registrations that we have had, or clicks that we have had. I'm going to apply that now. And again, I'll show you what that report looks like with this one update. So I have the columns we had earlier created at and the total number of leads. I can, of course, drag and drop these columns so that they're in a slightly different order because and this is personal preference. Different people and different organizations may have a different preference for how this is displayed. I personally prefer to have all of my groupings down the left-hand side and then all of my columns and custom columns on the right. What this has done now is show me the date by month that a lead is created. That's my grouping. I then have the total leads and whether they clicked and engaged with our Unlocked series in each month. March, April, May, well, not April, May, June, July, I've got those around the wrong way around, August, September, and of course, we're currently running our October. One thing that I'd like to show you before I show you how we set up the October column is drilling down. Your people performance report allows you to drill down into a row. And that means that, going back to Megan's earlier comment about exceptions to the rules, about knowing who is in a report, I can click on a particular column, I can request it to drill down, and I can potentially even ask it to drill down by email address. Doing so gives me a secondary tab on my web browser. And that tab, well, in this particular instance, will only show me one lead, and it's an RMS lead. I was to make sure that I haven't shown anyone else's email addresses. I could actually have the full list of email addresses displayed. And that means that I can identify who has engaged and who has clicked over that time. Going back to our lead performance then, Graham has asked to see people who've engaged with our unlocked series based on their segmentation, specifically their segmentation to do with our training. To achieve that piece, making sure it is set up by the segmentation for training, I'm going to change who this is grouped by. It's now going to be grouped by my segment. I'm just going to search for segment at this point. Oh, there it is. Training query segment. I'm going to save. When I do this, I can go back into my report and it's no longer grouped by the month that a lead was created. It's now grouped by our basic segments. So I can see that of all the people who have engaged with our unlocked series, people who are interested in the essentials are the highest number. Now, at this point, I must add some of my own flavor to this. I also know that there is a larger portion of our database that's interested in the essentials. So that's the sort of analysis that we can run. So here's the big question. How did I create this March, May, June, and so on in the first place? That was created as a smart list. And it means that anything I can create a smart list on, I can pop into my people performance report. I'm going to do that for October, our current engagement. Jumping into the lead database, you can see I have my unlocked list. There's my August and so on. I'm going to add my October, new smart list, October. I'm just going to look for anyone who has clicked link in email. I'm not going to limit it to the last 30 days. And I'm going to specifically add the October unlocked. I'll add all of those so I can see all of my emails. And now I've created a simple smart list, though I could make this as complex as I wanted it to be. It's saved here under the lead database. I'm going to go back to the analytics section, back into the people performance that I was working on, and take a look at that report. Currently, it stops at September. I'm going to add October into this list. And that's exactly how we update the report to make sure that we have multiple columns in the one report. Finally, I can reorder this to pop it wherever I want it to go. That's simple, that's not a problem. I can update my smart list to ensure that I take out the default because that's not relevant to Graham at the moment. He's most interested in these top three. And I can, at any point, choose to change who I'm grouping by. So if I want to change this and see the relationship between a different segment, let's say our mush segmentations or our location, for example, I can simply do that and the whole report changes so that it's grouped by that specific segment. I still have the functionality of being able to drill down and I can create those custom columns based on anything that I can create a smart list for. One of the questions that I had in the Q&A is that in the performance tab, the lead performance tab, it doesn't show leads in a chronological order, but rather according to the total leads. How can that view be changed? So I'm going to quickly jump into Marketo then and take a look at. Please let me know if I have misinterpreted that question at all. As soon as my report loads, I can demonstrate that. What you probably have set here is if you look for this little green arrow, it's probably there under total leads.
Share your screen again, Nora.
Oh, sharing my screen. Thank you, Megan. In your lead performance report, what I imagine has happened is that you've got a little green arrow next to your total leads instead of your whatever you're grouping by. If you right click on what you're grouping by, you can sort by that particular column instead. And that should help you reorganize it so that it's not just ordered by your total leads, but if you've got your lead performance set up by date, it should be there. I can see there are a lot of questions coming in, guys. So if you do have any and we haven't answered them yet, please do let me know. And thank you so much to the people who shared their examples. Some examples that were given in this session are where the people performance report has helped identify using smart lists and custom columns, how people have used their features within certain applications, within certain systems for the organization, which is great. I would like to compile some of the results. So if you've given examples of how you've used it, could you please pop a quick message in the chat again to let me know if it's okay for me to share some of that information with the people who've attended today, obviously anonymized after the session.